Welcome to The Straight Stitch, a podcast about sewing and other fiber arts. This is episode 33, and my name is Janet Szabo. I'll be your guide as we explore all things sewing. It's the beginning of May here, but you would never know it. We had snow on Wednesday that was pretty demoralizing. I don't think that the temperature ever got above 30 degrees Fahrenheit for about 36 hours. We're warming up a little bit now, which is good. We might cool down a little bit again next week, and then I'm hoping that we will be done with winter for good, even if we get more rain, which we always need. I'd like for the temperatures to stay up a little bit. I'm the chairman of a fundraising plant sale that normally happens the third weekend in May every year, and we actually pushed it back this year by 2 weeks and moved it to the first weekend in June because nothing is growing well in my greenhouse. It is warm in the greenhouse, but plants need sunlight almost more than they need heat. And it's been pretty gloomy, so we're hoping that things will start taking off. I haven't been doing a lot of sewing. I've been fitting it in here and there. I did spend all day Tuesday working on class samples. I'm going to be teaching Gail Yellen's serger and cover stitch Christmas stocking pattern. And if you haven't checked that pattern out, I would recommend that you do so if you're looking for something fun to do with your serger or cover stitch machines. I took that class when Gail released it as an online course, and then maybe a year later, she released the pattern, and it's for sale in stores. I contacted her about teaching it, and she said that would be perfectly fine, so I'm going to teach that here at the store in Kalispell and also at the store down in Missoula. And I need to have some display samples. I've only got one stocking made up right now. I did the serger version to start. So on Tuesday, I spent the day doing the cover stitch version, which was not without a few speed bumps along the way. And I think it was mostly because my cover stitch machine, which is a Janome 3000, is not terribly fond of the Wonderfill Glamour 12 weight metallic thread that I was using. Honestly, I'm not surprised. And my solution to that was to switch to a 12-weight rayon thread, which goes through the machine like butter. For some reason, the metallic was getting hung up in the loopers. So I did make the Christmas stocking, and it turned out fine, and it'll be one of my class displays. But the next one that I make is going to be done with the rayon thread. And I'll be using Wonderfill Accent for that. That's a lovely, shiny rayon 12-weight thread, and I can get decorative effects with it, but it doesn't hang up in the cover stitch machine. Yesterday, I spent a little bit of time in the afternoon hemming some pants. We've all got those piles of projects that just need 1 or 2 hours of time to move them along the pipeline or get them finished, and that was what I did yesterday afternoon. At some point soon, I'd like to get back to some garment projects and maybe some quilting projects, but until we get through this growing season, which will probably be most of the month of May, sewing time's going to be a little bit limited. I have another interview show for you today. I know I've been heavy on the interviews, but right now when I've got a lot of other things taking up my time, the interviews have really helped me produce content without having to come up with topics to pontificate about for half an hour. So I hope that you will enjoy these interviews. They're not all with garment makers. Today is another garment maker, but next week's interview will be with somebody who's doing something completely different. And I am trying to mix it up a little bit. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, I do have a podcast guest form on my website at thestraightstitchpodcast.com. And if you fill out that podcast guest form and submit it, I will get back to you. I can't guarantee that you'll be a guest on the show. Some of it depends on the scheduling, and I don't want to load up too much on one kind of topic or another, but that's the first step in getting on the show. My guest today is someone whose YouTube channel I absolutely love. Her name is Whitney Luckenbill, and she is the genius behind TomKat Stitchery on YouTube. That's TomKat, TomKat Stitchery. And I had the absolute good fortune to meet Whitney in person at Sew Expo in Puyallup, Washington in February of this year when I was there teaching. She and her operations director, Jenny, came to Seattle and spent a couple of days at Sew Expo, and I got to spend some time with them there. We did the interview after Sew Expo so that I would have enough time to, and in a relaxed atmosphere, to ask her questions. And that's going to be today's episode. So I hope that you will enjoy my interview with Whitney of TomKat Stitchery. I am here with Whitney Luckenbill from the YouTube channel TomKat Stitchery, and we're going to have a really nice chat today. So welcome to the podcast, Whitney.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's my pleasure to be here.
You are one of my favorite YouTube sewists, and when I got to meet you at Sew Expo, I was just thrilled. So,
Well, that is so kind. Thank you,
I'm having a
Janet.
little fangirl moment here.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you.
So let's start out by having you tell our listeners how you got to the place where you are. I'm always fascinated by how people learn to sew, who taught them, how, what your journey has been to this point. So
Absolutely. So I have kind of an interesting journey. I did not grow up sewing. I was not taught by, well, I shouldn't say, my mom helped me limp along there at the very beginning, but I wasn't really taught by grandma or anything like that. No one in my family sews. So I have a little bit different story than a lot of people. In 2006, I've always had a creative bent, but my professional career actually before children was I was a financial analyst with the Federal Reserve Bank. So I actually have an accounting and finance background from college. Out of that, some health issues required me to quit that job while we were figuring that out. And then I had twins. So that kind of waylaid me from that kind of professional background. But in 2006, I was pregnant with my twins, and they are a boy and a girl. And I was looking for gender neutral bedding that was not boring and could not find anything. So on a whim, and I'm not even sure why, I told my mom, I'm like, let's just figure it out and let's make the bed for the nursery. So that's what we did. She bought me for my birthday a brother sewing machine from Costco. And we, I think at the time I was 5 or 6 months pregnant with twins. So who doesn't want to be on their hands and knees cutting out baby bedding at that time? But that's what I did. And we did get the nursery finished, but that experience lit a spark in me, and I was smitten with sewing and wanted to learn everything I could. Obviously, in those first early years with twin infants and then toddlers, there was very little time for sewing, but I was absorbing everything I could through online was just kind of starting out at that point. Craftsy was just kind of starting out a little bit, later into the journey. And so I was just absorbing books and anything I could about sewing. In 2011, we moved from the Kansas City area to the Indianapolis area, and I decided to take my first garment sewing class. I had made costumes for my kids up until that point, but that was it as far as garment sewing was concerned. And the teacher for this class, we hit it off. Our brains just meshed. We just were a really good fit. And after the class, she called and asked if I would be interested in apprenticing with her. So I went and became an apprentice of my mentor, Joyce. She was a professional dressmaker. At the time, she'd been a professional dressmaker for 43 years. And she's the one. She did the Pence family inauguration dresses for when he was governor here in Indiana. And she was also the contact. We did the presidential inauguration dresses for the whole Pence family. And that was through her contact. But I apprenticed with her for 3 years. And then when she retired, she sold her business to a past employee of hers. And I went to work for that lady and worked in a bridal workroom / she did custom sewing and alterations as well. So it was kind of baptism by fire where my sewing education came in. And it was at that point, about 2017, I think, I decided she was expanding her business and I couldn't be quite as flexible with my schedule anymore with her. But I needed flexibility because I still had young kids at home. So I left that job and started doing custom sewing and alterations out of my home, which is where the TomKat Stitchery name came from. That was my own little business that I ran for a little bit. But in 2018, I decided I wanted to be part of the online sewing community that was kind of exploding at that time, and decided to just start a YouTube channel for fun and to see where that took me, and kind of the rest is history. But yes, that I've only been sewing since 2006.
That your story is, we have a lot of parallels. I graduated from high school without ever taking a home ec course.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I took the industrial technology. I wanted to take the construction classes. Yeah.
Which I'm sure has helped you.
Yeah, it's actually very similar. Yes. Yeah. Construction with wood is very similar to making things with fabric.
Yeah, right. So did you jump right into doing a YouTube channel then?
Kind of. There weren't a ton. There were a handful of YouTubers that were kind of doing it there in 2018. And I was like, I just want to share what I'm making, because I was doing sewing for myself and having a lot of fun doing that. And I was on the road to creating a completely handmade wardrobe at that time. And so, yeah, that's kind of, I just kind of jumped right in with my phone, in a well-lit room of my house with my phone. And that was it. Yeah.
And I've watched the transformation into your new studio, and that has been phenomenal.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a wild ride. It'll be 6 years that I've been doing YouTube in August.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You talk a lot in your videos about, and this is why I started sewing for myself, not being able to find ready to wear that fits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because none of us are standard sizes, right? I mean,
Right.
That's the whole crux of it. I could clothe my body, but nothing ever fit great. I'm very busty, and I lean towards a kind of a classic aesthetic, which is a lot of tailored garments. And it was almost impossible for me to find tailored garments that would fit in my shoulders. I'm only 5'2", so I'm not really tall. But to get things to fit in my bust, shoulders were way too big. I mean, I could never wear the type of clothes that I wanted to wear. And when I did my very first button-up shirt, which probably 2012 maybe, it was like a light bulb went off, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I can wear button-up shirts, and I love me in button-up shirts. The full bust adjustment was an absolute game changer.
And in some ways, that's kind of sad that women have been fed this belief that our bodies aren't perfect.
Right. Yes, that our bodies need to change for the clothes, when in all reality, it's our clothes need to change for our bodies, because we all have unique figures. We all have unique bodies. Very rarely are people able to buy completely off the rack. Especially as we age. It's a little different when you're, 16, 17,
right?
But, when you're, 44, things are a lot different, and it's almost impossible, other than knit clothing, thank goodness for knits. But
do you have a preference? I know you do some of both. Do you have a preference, or you like it all?
I do. I like it all. It really kind of depends. I'll go through moods where I'm just in the mood to sew a lot of knits. I can sew knits a lot quicker. Usually. So sometimes I'm in those moods, but I have a whole pile of woven garments right now waiting to be sewn up. And I'm looking forward to just slowing down a little bit and getting some of those made up as well. Yeah.
So you're a brand ambassador for a number of different pattern companies. Can you talk a little bit about that process? How do you become a brand ambassador? What's involved? You're probably working a season ahead.
The pattern companies themselves, I'm sure, are working ahead of time. I am a brand ambassador for Love Notions, and that is a little bit more involved. So, and that I do pattern testing for them, not all the time. I don't test all of their patterns. I think there's like 25, 27 of us that are brand ambassadors. But the way I got into that was I became part of their testing group. So they have a testing group of just that anyone can kind of join. And when I was part of the testing group, then I applied to be an ambassador a little bit late when they were opening up positions for that. Because again, they do keep a little bit smaller. So the ambassadors, we are kind of group A that tests the patterns. So we are the beta testers. We do all of the intense testing. So then once that is finished, then it goes out to the testing group so that they can get a much wider variety of shapes and sizes and that sort of things. But the idea is that any major bugs go through us first, or even, getting into something and maybe, I would rather have an 1.5 inch wide elastic here instead of an inch, or, things like that then she'll tweak for the pattern to go out to the regular testers. Also with Brand Ambassador, though, I create content as well for their YouTube channel or their social media accounts. And I am compensated for that. But yeah, there's a list of things that we can do. None of us are required to do it all, but we're just required to, promote the pattern. And that's a pattern company that I absolutely love. And I love their work ethos. I love working with Tammy and Tessa. The other ambassadors is wonderful. And then it's just a really good company as far as the patterns are concerned as well. I have a lot of fun hacking those. And they've got really exciting plans coming out this year. And that's another perk of being an ambassador. You get to be inside there on stuff that is coming up. But when it comes to pattern testing, and I pattern test for a couple of other companies as well, usually it's a, maybe 2.5 week turnaround. So a call will go out saying, here's the new pattern that I want to test. And I'll look at my schedule and say, okay, do I have time to make that t-shirt? Oh yeah, I've got time to make that t-shirt. I could test that pattern. Or, versus maybe it's a intricate coat where I maybe have time, but maybe don't, depending on what my schedule looks like. But I think it's a lot of fun. It's one of those things that the sewing community is such a warm and welcoming place. And anytime I can do my little part to help promote companies that I love, because most of us are all small businesses. So being able to promote others and, when the tide rises, we all rise kind of type thing, and helping promote the love of sewing across everyone. I find it's a real honor to be able to work with a lot of those really great pattern and fabric companies as well. Mm-hmm.
Do you have, this is kind of an off the wall question. Do you have a sense that more young people are taking up sewing?
Okay, I'm going to say yes. And really, this comes from being a mom of 17-year-olds. My daughter in particular, my kids go to a very large high school, like a ridiculous, like 5,500 students. It's a very large high school, but it's got a lot of really fantastic programs. And she's got a number of friends that are in taking some of the fashion design classes that they've got available there, which are just basic sewing and that sort of thing. So I think of her friend group of 9 or 10 that are going to prom together, I think like 3 of them are making their own prom dresses.
Wow.
Which is amazing. And of course, those are, right in the middle of the Gen Z kind of coming up. So yes, I kind of felt for a while. So I'm 44. I'm at the kind of the end of the Generation X, but I felt for a little bit like I was kind of this weird island. My age put me in this weird island where I had people that had been, grew up sewing, and now they're retiring and going back to sewing. And then you've got these younger millennials. I feel like that kind of started to take up a little bit, especially as the millennials started having kids and, sewing for your kids, and people becoming more interested in sustainability, upcycling, doing all that kind of stuff. So yes, I do see the younger generation becoming much more interested in some of these skills that used to be passed down from generation to generation and then just kind of stopped. And it's cool. It's a really cool thing to see.
It is very cool. And you're doing your part now with online classes.
Yeah. Yes.
So talk a little bit about your online classes.
Yeah. So that has been a really fun, about a year. I think we're right at a year since offering digital classes through our website. It started off with a pattern fitting class, which is a class that I only offer twice a year right now because there's a live component. It's videos, so you have access to those forever and ever, where I'm teaching all the different things. But the live component is kind of it's a community similar to Facebook, but it's inside the class. It's hosted by the class platform, so it's a little bit more it's much more private. So people can post videos and photos, and we help diagnose fit. But at the end of the 6 weeks, we do a woven top, a knit pant, and a woven pant.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And that was kind of the first, it was a big undertaking to get that class
Go big or
created
go home.
and put out there. And even just running it, twice a year. We're in we're in week 2, I think, right now, of another session. But it's wonderful. I love meeting everyone in the community. I love seeing as everyone starts helping each other. I love community, and sewing is such a solo sport that sometimes, we miss that community aspect, but it harkens back to the old quilting bee days, right? Where people would get together and just so you could have that social time. And that really fills me. I really enjoy that. So that's a lot of fun, but I have quite a few classes, got 4, 5 now maybe, that are evergreen, which means you can just go on and take them at any time. So that's been a lot of fun to put those together as well. So I've got some classes that are a little bit lower tiers that are kind of informative. We cover a topic of some sorts. And then I have 2 classes now that are project based. So shirt making, where we go through start to finish with creating a button up shirt. I go over all the different seam techniques and different collar applications, and basically any shirt pattern, male, female, whatever. You can pick your options that your pattern contains. I don't use a specific pattern, so that leaves it up. You can use whatever pattern you would like. And I cover that. And then today, actually, as we're filming this, my knit sewing essentials class just went live, which is teaching you how to sew with knits, both on a sewing machine, a serger, either cover stitch machine. I show how to use that as well, depending on what machine you have. And we do sew a t-shirt from start to finish. But I go through 4 different necklines on it, but it's a lot about learning to sew with knits, being comfortable sewing with knits, and then how, once you've got these basic skills for sewing a t-shirt, how that literally are the building blocks for sewing every other knit garment that's kind of out there. So yeah, that class went up today, but it's a lot of fun to be able to participate in the sewing community that way. Teaching is something that I really enjoy doing, and nothing gives me more joy than when I get emails or messages from people where they've had that aha moment because of a YouTube tutorial or one of the digital classes. That absolutely is why I do what I do.
And you do teach a few in-person classes too, don't you, locally?
Yeah, well, I have in the past. Yes, I did 2 in-person classes in 2022 to kind of test the waters to see if I enjoyed teaching. I do. And we'll probably do some more in-person classes at some point in the future. We don't have anything planned right now. We've kind of put all of our focus into digital classes for right now, just because we can reach such a wider audience. And that's kind of why I wanted to do that. But yeah, I love having the face-to-face meeting with people. It's one of my favorite things too.
When I was working as a knitting designer, I traveled around the country teaching classes, and I
Yeah.
really missed that. But
Yeah.
I've had to promise my husband that I won't do that again.
Because it is a lot of away from home.
It is a lot of away from home. So I had to promise that I would confine myself to the Pacific Northwest. So yeah, I totally get it.
There you go. Yeah, it's fun though.
And when your kids are at that age where they're about to leave home,
Yeah.
you want to maximize the amount of time that you have to spend with them.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
totally get that.
Yeah. We in the middle of soccer season right now with one of them, and I've got a lot of travel too, and trying to get those around so I can make as many soccer games as possible.
Yeah. So what's coming up in the future? More online classes, it sounds like.
Yes, we have got like I said, we just released one today, but we already have more stuff in the planning stages to keep moving forward. A lot of fun stuff coming up on the YouTube channel. We are working with some really fantastic brands a little bit later this summer, which is really fun to do. Again, working with some just quality things that I'm using already that I love, and being able to promote them and work with them a little bit closer. Looking forward to doing that a little bit. We've got summer, I love to dress and to sew in capsules. I'm not a minimalist. My capsule wardrobe is by nothing minimalist, and it's full of all the colors. So it's not your typical capsule wardrobe, but I do love to curate those each season, just to make getting dressed a little bit easier. And I sew with a color palette, and so I've just got a very cohesive closet now, but I like to go through that each season and kind of put some pieces together for the capsule. So that'll be coming up for summer, doing some summer planning. And I love matching fabric and patterns with ready to wear looks. That's one of my favorite types of videos to research. And we've got that coming up as well for the summer. So yeah, a lot of really fun things on the horizon with TomKat Stitchery.
Those are my favorite ones of your videos. I love when you do your fabric haul videos, and I love when you do your color theory videos, because I'm a winter.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. Part of the reason I started sewing was because I love bright colors too.
Yes.
And I got so tired of muddy earth tones.
Yes, or just like all of the neutrals. So I'm a spring, so I'm not far off of you. I'm just warm instead of cool, but it's the bright colors as well. And I like color blocking, and that's not always available in the stores.
Right.
Yeah.
And thanks to you, I found Minerva.
Yes. It's addictive.
It's one of those mixed blessings.
Absolutely.
So yes, I love the matching the ready to wear to the patterns, and that just brings up so much creativity, so many ideas of things to do. So
absolutely. And it's also, sometimes I like to go on and find like, okay, what's the most ridiculously priced thing that I can find? And let's try and like recreate that designer item. Like, cool, they're selling it for, $3,000 here. And I can recreate it for under 100, woohoo.
My younger daughter is an assistant buyer for Nordstrom.
Oh yeah.
And so I was telling her, I said, I know this YouTuber, and she did a farm Rio.
Love farm Rio. Yes.
So yeah, sometimes I walk around Nordstrom with her, and I'm like, oh, we could sew that, and we could sew that, and we could sew that. And yeah.
Absolutely. I love window shopping. I do that quite frequently, just like going to the malls and seeing what's out there. And I've turned into a fabric snob. I'm touching things and I'm like, oh, well, we could make that with much nicer fabric, or I wouldn't have finished that off that way, but
right. Well, it sounds like you have a lot going on. Can you tell our listeners how they can find you?
Absolutely. So the easiest is my website, which is tomkatstitchery.com, and that's TOMKAT, stitchery.com. We've got classes listed over there. You can get to the YouTube channel from there. But I'm also TomKat Stitchery on YouTube. And then I'm on Instagram a ton, and Facebook as well. And I'm TomKat Stitchery Caramel on there. That is also a leftover from when I was doing custom sewing and alterations. Caramel is where I live. So that is kind of where that came from. But yeah, I am over on, like I said, Instagram and Facebook quite frequently. And then YouTube, we have videos that go out on Tuesdays and Fridays. So
awesome. And is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to talk about?
Gosh, I don't think so. Just, take a look, you can take a look at the classes and that sort of thing. Go have a look on YouTube. I've got sewing tutorials over there, sew alongs, as well as inspiration. Our mantra is inspiring, educating, and engaging with the sewing community. It's just a big passion of TomKat Stitchery's to spread the love of sewing, sewing for everybody. Ready? Not everybody, but everybody.
Everybody.
Because that's why we do this. Not only is it a creative pursuit, but it's a great way to feel good about yourself. It has absolutely changed my own body image of myself, which is something I'm trying to pass on to my daughter. But it is, it's a healing creative art.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. This was a lot of fun.
Do go and check out Whitney's online classes and her YouTube channel. She's got a lot of fabulous content, and I know that you will learn something no matter where you are in your sewing journey. You can always go to the podcast website at www.thestraightstitchpodcast.com, and there you will find the show notes for each episode with links to all the content. You can also check out my website at www.janetzabo.com, and my last name is spelled S as in Sam, Z as in zebra, A, B as in boy, O. janetzabo.com. I keep a blog there where I talk about life in Montana and detail more of my sewing projects there. If you want to check that out, there's also a link to my knitting website at www.bigskyknittingdesigns.com, where you can purchase my knitting patterns and my books. As always, I would love it if you left a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or your favorite podcatcher. That does help other people to find us. Or you can subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, even though it's right now only an audio-only podcast. My husband did replace the lights in my office, so now they don't shut themselves off intermittently anymore like they used to. So it's possible that I may play around with doing some videos, but we'll have to see. So in the meantime, I hope that you have an excellent week and that you get to go sew something.